The South China Sea, a place of breathtaking beauty and rich marine life, has long been a crossroads of cultures, trade, and history. Its turquoise waters and scattered islands are not just a marvel of nature, but also a vital artery for global commerce, with trillions of dollars in goods passing through each year. Yet beneath the tranquil surface, a storm of geopolitical tension brews, threatening to disrupt the peace that so many depend on. Once a symbol of connection, the South China Sea is now a hotspot of international tension, where invisible lines drawn on maps have become flashpoints for conflict. The boundaries here are fiercely contested, with multiple nations laying claim to overlapping territories, each driven by history, resources, and national pride. On a seemingly routine day, a Philippine supply vessel set out on a mission to the remote Second Thomas Shoal, a tiny reef that has become a symbol of Manila's determination to defend its maritime rights. The crew, accustomed to the challenges of the open sea, found themselves facing a new and unexpected danger as they approached their destination. Stationed on the rusting hulk of the BRP Sierra Madre, Filipino Marines stand as living sentinels, their presence a daily reminder of the Philippines' claim to this contested outpost. The ship, deliberately grounded decades ago, has become both a fortress and a symbol of resistance, weathering the elements and the constant threat of confrontation. Suddenly, the horizon filled with the imposing silhouettes of Chinese Coast Guard ships. Larger, more numerous, and equipped with the latest technology, they moved with purpose, forming a blockade that boxed in the much smaller Philippine supply boat. The message was unmistakable: "You shall not pass." The air was thick with tension as the Chinese ships performed aggressive maneuvers, cutting across the bow of the Philippine vessel and sounding their horns in a deafening display of power. The sea, once calm, now churned with the wake of ships locked in a dangerous dance, each move calculated to intimidate and assert dominance. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Filipino crew stood firm, their faces set with determination. They held their course, refusing to be cowed by the show of force. For them, this was more than a mission. It was a test of wills, a demonstration of resolve in the face of overwhelming pressure. Without warning, powerful water cannons erupted from the Chinese ships, slamming into the Philippine vessel with relentless force. The jets of water battered the hull, drenching the deck and crew, a forceful act that stopped just short of open conflict. It was a clear escalation, a warning shot that underscored the seriousness of the standoff. Beijing's message was clear and uncompromising. "These are our waters, and we will defend them by any means necessary." Chinese officials issued stern statements, insisting that their actions were justified and that they were merely enforcing their laws within what they consider sovereign territory. The Philippine government, however, saw things very differently. Officials condemned the incident as harassment and a violation of international law, calling on the world to take notice. China, in turn, maintained that it was simply carrying out law enforcement operations, dismissing Manila's protests as unfounded. This dramatic encounter highlighted the ever-present risks in these contested waters, where a single miscalculation could spark a wider conflict. The South China Sea has become a chessboard, with each move watched closely by the world, and every incident raising the stakes for all involved. The standoff quickly drew condemnation from the United States and its allies, who see freedom of navigation in these waters as a vital interest. Warships from several nations now patrol the region, their presence a reminder that the world is watching, and that any escalation could have far-reaching consequences. As diplomats scramble to defuse the crisis, world leaders gather at urgent summits, searching for a path to peace. The question on everyone's mind is clear: what happens next? Can diplomacy and dialogue avert disaster, or is the region destined for further confrontation? The eyes of the world remain fixed on the South China Sea, where the next chapter is yet to be written. Scarborough Shoal, a small ring of reefs, is a critical flashpoint in the South China Sea. Filipino fishermen have sailed these waters for generations, tied to its rich marine life. Beyond fishing, the shoal holds immense strategic value. For China, controlling it is key to dominating the South China Sea. The 2012 standoff was a turning point, with China maintaining a constant presence since. The loss of control was a major blow to the Philippines, challenging its sovereignty. The incident pushed Manila to seek international legal action against China's claims. Scarborough Shoal symbolizes Manila's struggle against a powerful neighbor. China's actions in the South China Sea are not isolated incidents, but rather, they are part of a grand, long-term strategy that has been unfolding over the past several decades. The Chinese government has invested heavily in expanding its naval capabilities, conducting regular patrols, and asserting its presence in these contested waters. This is not just about military might, it's about sending a clear message to the world that China intends to be the dominant power in this region. For Beijing, the South China Sea is far more than just a stretch of water. It is seen as a lifeline for the nation's economy and a critical buffer for national security. The leadership in Beijing believes that control over this area is essential to protect its growing economic interests, safeguard its borders, and ensure the continued prosperity of its people. The South China Sea is woven into the fabric of China's national identity and its vision for the future. The sea lanes that crisscross the South China Sea are among the busiest in the world. Every year, trillions of dollars worth of goods, including vital energy imports like oil and natural gas, pass through these waters. For China, maintaining unimpeded access to these shipping routes is crucial. Any threat to these lanes could disrupt trade, impact energy security, and ultimately threaten the stability of the Chinese economy. Central to China's claims is the so-called Nine-Dash Line, a sweeping boundary that appears on Chinese maps and encompasses almost the entire South China Sea. This line is based on historical assertions, but it overlaps with the exclusive economic zones of several neighboring countries, leading to ongoing disputes and international tension. The Nine-Dash Line is a symbol of China's ambition, but also a source of friction with its neighbors and the wider world. To turn its claims into reality, China has embarked on a massive campaign of land reclamation, building artificial islands atop reefs and shoals. These islands are not just piles of sand, they are being transformed into formidable military outposts, complete with airstrips, radar installations, and missile systems. This construction boom has dramatically altered the landscape of the South China Sea, raising concerns among other nations about China's intentions. These fortified islands serve as forward bases for Chinese military operations, allowing Beijing to project power far from its shores. With advanced weaponry and surveillance systems, China can monitor and potentially control both the airspace and the vital sea lanes that pass through the region. This military buildup has shifted the balance of power, making the South China Sea one of the world's most heavily militarized maritime zones. But the contest is not just about territory or military strength. Beneath the waves, the South China Sea is believed to hold vast reserves of oil and natural gas, resources that are critical for fueling the economies of China and its neighbors. The promise of untapped wealth adds another layer of complexity to the dispute, as countries compete for the right to explore and exploit these underwater riches. Ultimately, the South China Sea has become a high-stakes arena where economic interests, national pride, and strategic ambitions collide. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the disputes have been complicated by competing claims, military standoffs, and the involvement of outside powers. As nations vie for resources and influence, the path to a peaceful resolution remains uncertain, making the South China Sea one of the most contested and closely watched regions in the world today. For the Philippines, this is more than just a territorial dispute, it is a fight for its very soul, a struggle that touches the heart of every Filipino. The nation stands on the front line, not only defending its borders but also its identity, dignity, and future. Every wave that crashes on its shores, every flag that flutters in the wind, is a reminder of what is at stake. The people feel the weight of history and the urgency of the present moment, knowing that their actions today will shape the destiny of generations to come. The South China Sea, known locally as the West Philippine Sea, is not just a body of water. It is a lifeline, a source of food, livelihood, and national pride. For countless coastal communities, the sea provides daily sustenance and economic opportunity. Generations of Filipino fishermen have braved its waters, passing down their knowledge and traditions. The sea is woven into the fabric of Filipino culture, celebrated in songs, stories, and festivals. Its bounty feeds millions, and its beauty inspires hope and resilience. Yet this way of life is under threat. Filipino fishermen now face growing dangers from foreign vessels that encroach on their traditional fishing grounds. These confrontations are not just about lost catch, they are about lost heritage, lost security, and the fear that the sea may one day no longer belong to them. The risks are real: intimidation, damaged boats, and dwindling fish stocks. Each journey to sea is a test of courage and a gamble for survival. In this struggle, the Philippines is like David facing Goliath. Its military is smaller and less equipped compared to the might of its neighbors, especially China. Filipino sailors and Coast Guard officers patrol vast waters with limited resources, relying on determination and ingenuity. The imbalance is stark, but the resolve to defend the nation's sovereignty is unwavering. To level the playing field, the Philippines turns to international law, diplomacy, and strategic alliances. It seeks support from allies and partners, invoking the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and building coalitions with like-minded nations. Diplomats work tirelessly in global forums, advocating for the rule of law and peaceful resolution of disputes. Manila makes it a point to publicize Chinese actions, shining a spotlight on incidents and violations. By raising awareness at home and abroad, the government hopes to rally international support and pressure for accountability. The voices of ordinary citizens, experts, and officials blend together in a chorus demanding justice and respect for Philippine rights. This strategy is about more than just legal arguments. It is a battle for hearts and minds. By winning in the court of public opinion, the Philippines aims to build a global consensus that upholds its claims and condemns aggression. Social media campaigns, international news coverage, and grassroots activism all play a role in amplifying the Filipino perspective. At its core, this struggle is about national sovereignty, the right to control one's own territory and resources. It is about ensuring that future generations of Filipinos can fish, work, and thrive in their own waters. The fight is not just for land or sea, but for the dignity and independence of the nation. The fight for the West Philippine Sea has become a defining issue for Filipinos everywhere. It unites people from all walks of life, fishermen, soldiers, diplomats, activists, and children, under a common cause. In the face of adversity, the Filipino spirit endures, determined to protect what is rightfully theirs and to secure a better future for all. The U.S. is not a claimant, but has interests in the South China Sea. Freedom of navigation is a primary concern, with vital shipping lanes at stake. The U.S. Navy conducts freedom of navigation operations to challenge excessive claims. These operations often lead to tense encounters with China. The U.S. aims to maintain stability and balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. Strengthening alliances with countries like the Philippines counters Chinese coercion. The U.S. must manage its complex relationship with China, avoiding direct conflict. Washington navigates this crisis with strength and diplomacy, deterring aggression without provoking war. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty binds the U.S. and the Philippines in a military alliance. It provides a security guarantee for the Philippines. The key question is whether it applies to South China Sea conflicts. The U.S. has clarified that an attack on Philippine forces in the area would invoke defense commitments. This shift sends a direct message to Beijing, raising stakes. For the Philippines, it offers security and emboldens resistance to Chinese pressure. The treaty is now central in the South China Sea showdown. The South China Sea crisis is rooted in centuries of history. China's expansive claim is based on historical arguments. The Philippines argues features like Scarborough Shoal are geographically close. Other nations like Vietnam have their own historical claims. These narratives create a complex tapestry of overlapping claims. History clashes with modern international law, complicating resolution. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea provides a legal framework. The dispute pits ancient history against contemporary global order. In 2013, the Philippines challenged China at the Permanent Court of Arbitration. The case used UNCLOS to dispute China's 9-dash line. China refused to participate, claiming sovereignty issues. In 2016, the tribunal ruled in favor of the Philippines. The ruling rejected China's claims and condemned its actions. China dismissed the ruling, continuing its activities. The verdict highlighted the limits of international law without enforcement. It remains a powerful tool for the Philippines, but hasn't changed the situation on the ground. The South China Sea situation is precarious. Escalation could lead to dangerous confrontations. A frozen conflict might avoid war but normalize coercion. Dialogue and diplomacy offer hope. A code of conduct could prevent accidents and manage encounters. Resolving disputes peacefully requires compromise, especially from Beijing. The world watches as leaders navigate this test of international order. Caution and commitment to peace are crucial to avoid conflict.